All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show where we talk about the slate. Look at guys we want to go over on, guys we want to go under on. It's a wild slate. There's a lot of games. Brandon, how are you feeling about things?
Not too great, to be honest. Not
Yeah.
only is it a big slate, but we got some pretty bad value, so it's going to be interesting at least.
And per usual, gotta love NBA DFS. A ton of questionable tags too,
Yep.
and a lot of them matter a decent bit. Even some guys like Fox, De'Aaron Fox, who's questionable. Maybe on Saturday you're like, Fox is out. I can probably be fine without him. And then you see Keegan Murray almost break the 3-point record, and then you're like, okay, I guess things like that do matter more than I might have assumed.
I
But
was hoping he got that. He was just that close.
He was, but it happens. And I don't know, Keegan Murray having a 3-point record sounds weird.
It
Sounds
does.
really weird. So I'm kind of okay with it. Dave, appreciate you, man. If you all could share, and subscribe, hit those buttons, that'd be awesome. Always support. Appreciate the support. And Dave, always appreciate you too, man. Derrick Henry stopped me from taking down the 0.25 Hail Mary yesterday. Yeah, Derrick Henry. God, it's weird because he had a decent slate last week, but he's looking more and more washed every single week. But we'll see. We'll see. Sorry that happened, man. Michael Ortiz, Dave, JJ, good to see you guys in here. Appreciate the support. We are a little early, so it's okay if everyone couldn't make it. Hopefully they can watch afterwards. But let's dig into this slate. There's a lot of games. First up, we have one of the more interesting games on the slate, to me at least. We have the Clippers going up against the Pacers. Who are you liking on the Clippers side of things, Brandon?
I love this team. So first two that stand out the most to me, and I'll be over the field on. Those two are Kawhi Leonard and Paul George.
Mm-hmm.
They're still in that nice 8K range. I still think they're underpriced. So I have a decent amount of them. James Harden, I probably won't be as high on him as I am the other two, but he's for sure viable in this matchup, and I don't even mind getting to Zubac here. So we've been playing bigs against Pacers for forever now, so those would be my four main priorities on this team.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Obviously, Kawhi has been awesome. He's the one that saved me on Saturday, even though I didn't have as much exposure to Murray. And I agree with you as well. Paul George, that price tag is going lower and lower. He hasn't had the ceiling that he had a little bit earlier in this season, but he's still a decent play and a really good matchup against the Pacers. And then I like James Harden just because I like lowish owned guys who are in really good game environments. But I do think PG and Kawhi are the better plays. I just like the lower ownership on James Harden, so I'll make sure to force him in a little bit too. And then Zubac, I agree. We've been playing bigs against the Pacers, so I'm going to keep that up too. I don't know if I'll be able to get leverage on Zubac, but I want to try and get close to field weight exposure. So we'll see.
A lot of centers on his slate, so it's kind of hard to get leverage at 13% ownership.
Yeah, agreed. Thomas Dye, good to see you, man. Glad you're able to make it. For the Pacers side of the ball, biggest thing here is Tyrese Halliburton is questionable. What are you trying to do here?
Honestly, nothing. I'm probably not going to have any Pacers tonight. If Hallie plays, I can understand some shots, but we have some elite studs on here, and I'd rather go to those guys versus Hallie. So probably won't have any Pacers tonight. All these other guys are priced up, and it's going to be hard to get to.
Yeah, it's one of those slates where you do kind of have to pick and choose your studs, and you cannot just play everyone. Even if you're 150 maxing, like I think we're both planning on doing today, you have to pick and choose. I am, if he plays, I'm going to have some exposure to Halliburton. It's not the highest game total, but it's one of the top 3 highest game totals on the slate. And at this point, I just force exposure to studs in these spots. And when you kind of look at the totals in general, you see this Wizards-Kings game, really high, but really widespread. Pistons-Hawks, really high, but really widespread. But then this Clippers-Pacers game is a bit closer, and the spread's still pretty high. So that's kind of why I ended up landing on Halliburton. But I agree, there's still just as many viable studs on this slate outside of Hallie. And then Turner's really hard to trust these days of Isaiah Jackson seeing more and more minutes, and we all know Turner can get into foul trouble pretty easily as well. So I'm with you. I'm not too excited about the Pacers outside of Halliburton. Next up, we have the Chicago Bulls going up against the 76ers. Are any of these guys standing out for you so far?
Couple of them. So first guy is Vucevic. Not the best matchup, and that spread is super concerning, but he's in great form, and I still like that 8K price on him and low ownership. So he's definitely a guy I don't mind trying to get some leverage on. I definitely don't mind a 10% ownership on him. Next is DeRozan. He's in great form as well. 8,100, still a good price for him. I like his upside. Like I said, not the best matchup, but with Levine out, I'm always willing to go there with how DeRozan has been playing. And then Kobe White, I'm still trying to like transition my mind into him being like the guy now. Like when I see 7,800 next to Kobe White, I'm like, damn, that's way too much. But when you look at how he's been playing, I'm like, okay, I get it. So if I do play him, I'll probably be around Phil Wade. I don't think I want to go too much over, but I'm definitely okay having some of him. He's playing a crap ton of minutes and doing so much on his team. So those are kind of the three priorities here.
Yeah. No, I like those calls. I think if I put this game, just looked at it by itself, I like all of those guys. But when you look at the slate as a whole, and even the game before, looking at PG in comparison to DeRozan, I prefer Paul George, but I think DeRozan's a solid pivot off of him, like you mentioned with Levine out. Vucevic, you've been on Vucevic more than I have, but we've both been on him a good bit here lately, and he's been coming through for us. But this is where I jump off the train. I don't play guys against Embiid. It's just one of those things, but the ceiling's definitely still there at 8K. He can get there, so I get it. And then Kobe White, it's a total bias thing, but if the domination station is not giving me him, I'm not forcing him. But I agree with you. He's been so good lately. It's hard to ignore him at this point. But yeah, my brain is just not liking that. Got to power through it, though. That's what being a good DFS player is. Let's see. Yeah, JJ, Sacramento is super cheap. We'll get there here soon, though. Dixon, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Grayson said, what's up, B-Gang? When you two are 150 maxing, what's a rule of thumb for exposures per position? For example, for your favorite center, it would be 60% highest, and you would do 15 to 20% centers. Makes sense. I can answer this, Brandon, unless you want to take it first.
Nope, yeah. I'll let you grab it because I'm sure my answer is the same as yours.
Yeah, I would say I don't really have a rule of thumb here. For me, I do like to prioritize my centers based off of who I like the most, but I do let the domination station do most of the work, and then I force exposures to guys I feel like I'm not getting enough exposure to. So we'll just use this game for example. If Joel Embiid was someone I liked a lot, I see he's 1% owned, I'll put a 5%, 10% min on him, or the alternative would be like a like, love, or adore to just try to make sure I get more exposure to those type of guys. But there's not like a set number of guys I want or a set ownership I want. It's really different every slate, which I know is annoying, but it's just the way I do it. Do you have a different answer there, Brandon?
No, exactly the same. It's all slate dependent and who we like. There's so many factors that go into it. So definitely not a set number we try to get to.
Yeah. If you are looking for process, though, in NBA, personally, I feel like there's not really a set one, or else you're going to lose a lot of money, in my opinion. But NFL is a sport where you can have a really consistent process and have consistent results with it. Whereas I do feel like NBA, you have to know a little bit more to decide who you want to pivot off of. Zolo, good to see you, man. MB, what's up? Good to see y'all. Moving on to the other side of this game, we have the 76ers going up against the Bulls. Are any of these guys standing out for you here?
So I don't know how I'm going to do it because, like I mentioned, the value sucks, but I really want to play Embiid because he's just playing out of his mind right now. And I at least want 5% min on him. It might be tough to do, and I'll have to see how lines look with him. But he's really the only guy who's standing out, of course, for me on this team.
Yeah. You know, I always want to take a shot on Maxey, but kind of like with Steph, I'm kind of just tired of doing that. So I don't foresee that happening unless something crazy happens, and maybe by the time we get to the pre-lock show, I'm looking at things differently, which does happen sometimes. Which, as a reminder, pre-lock show later today at 5:30 p.m. Both Brandon and I will be on that. That's where we talk through our leverage plays, our core plays, and we'll show even more so what we're doing in the Domination Station. If you are interested in that and you're not a DFS Army member, link in the description, promo code BDUBB, BDUB for a 10% discount there. Daniel, yeah, good to have you from Colorado. I know it's a little bit earlier on that side of the U.S. He said, how do you feel about DeAndre Jordan over Drummond for backup options? Ooh. That does not sound great. Honestly, I'm not super excited about either of those guys today. Brandon, do you feel differently?
Yeah, never excited about playing either one of those guys, but I think you definitely have to go Drummond. I usually don't even touch DeAndre unless Jokic is out.
Yeah. I'm going to try my best to not end up there is my goal, Daniel. Put me in, coach. Said, what's up? Good to see you, Coach Chris. Dixon said, I'm here to save you from the pain. He said, X out Maxi. Hey, I'm basically there with you, Dixon, but we'll see.
His price just won't go any lower. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, like I missed like the 7,800, 8,800 Maxi. This 9K range is wild still. For Joel Embiid earlier today, I'll be honest with y'all, I was planning on fading him because I thought he would be chalky because he's been so good lately. But he's still low owned. And so, like you mentioned, Brandon, if he's going to stay this low owned at 1% ownership, he's been really, really good. He has been in really good matchups lately. But the Bulls aren't a team I'm overly concerned about. I'll have probably 2 to 5% of him today. So I'm right there with you. Come on. Why is the ownership not higher? Next up, we have the Rockets going up against the Cavs. What are you doing here, Brandon?
This is a pretty tough team to get to. I'm honestly probably not going to have anybody here.
Yeah, I jumped off the Rockets train a long time ago, and I don't plan on coming back. And yeah, so I'm not playing these guys unless there's some sort of injury news that comes up. Now, the Cavs has your guy, Donovan Mitchell, who you've been on for a while. Are you on him again?
I'm on him again. I will be playing him as long as he's in this 9K range and his ownership continues to be low. I'm going there. Jared Allen is another viable guy, I think, with Mobley still out. I don't like that price too much, but I know he's coming off a pretty good game last game, so he's a good points per minute guy as well. So I don't mind like a small shot on him, but not something I want to go too crazy on. And these other guys are priced appropriately, so they're not really jumping out.
Yeah. Darius Garland, he didn't break his jaw in game, did he?
I actually didn't see the play, so I'm not sure when or how it happened.
Yeah, because I thought I was watching the game and I was like, he looks fine. And then the next day or later that night, we got the news that he broke his jaw. And I was like, what happened here? Yeah, but anyway, he's out and Mobley's out, like you mentioned. And so Mitchell is definitely on my radar because of those situations. I think this might be the cheapest we see Mitchell for a while. So I'm trying to get in early and at decently low ownership. The game total is low. And like we keep saying, there's a lot of really good studs on this slate. But I do like making sure I have some exposure to Mitchell. Jared Allen is just one more big whose matchup's not great against the Rockets, but 7,400 with Mobley out keeps him viable. We know he has decent upside. So he's just another viable big for me on this slate, but I'm not going out of my way to prioritize him here. Anyone else you want to touch on?
No, those would be the only two options for me, Allen and Mitchell.
Yeah, good to see you, Kanger. Daniel said, yeah, just trying to find cheap guys. Yeah, no, man, I totally get it. One thing that I usually don't like to spend too much time early in the day trying to find cheap plays, just because once we get more injury news, it totally changes the slate. And all the research you did trying to find these cheap guys usually ends up getting wasted. So I usually like to wait until a little bit later, but I get it. Like, no harm, no foul, man. Grayson said he broke it in game. Okay, so I must have just missed it. Dixon, yeah, I feel like he will be pretty high owned, but we'll see. We suck. All right. Next time you win contest, let us know.
Appreciate
and then yeah, and then for the Hornets against the Raptors, I'm not getting too many Hornets today, but am I seeing things differently?
No, this is going to be another team that's pretty hard to get to. Another guy I've been kind of on for a while is Rozier, but this might be a spot where I'm kind of not too excited to play him. So another team I probably won't have tonight.
Yeah, it's weird. We've been playing Rozier for a good chunk of time now, but not overly excited about any of these guys tonight, unfortunately. So pretty safe to move on. Next up, I think the Raptors are a bit more enticing than the Hornets. Do you agree with that?
For sure. Siakam, I think probably same applies to you. He's probably going to be a leverage play at 5% ownership. Schroeder stands out. That 6,500 price tag is looking pretty good, and it's the Hornets. So I'm sure I'll either be field weight or I actually don't mind being over the field on him. Barnes, I kind of want to make sure I have some, but that 9,400 price tag on this kind of slate might be kind of tough to play him today. So at most maybe 5%, but I probably won't force it in if we don't get any more value to open up. And then Podol, of course, is another guy we like to target, especially against this Hornets team. So don't mind being around field weight on him. And OG's worth mentioning too at that price tag. He's gonna help make some lines work tonight.
Man, I feel like I've been taking the shot on Jakob so often, Jakob Podol. And he's been good. He had a strong game against Atlanta where he scored 47 DK points, but it's been so all over the place with like some 19-point performances in there. But he's still lowish owned at 8%. So I'm willing to go back here, but he's starting to get on my nerves a little bit. I think, like you mentioned, Pascal Siakam's the guy that I'm really just going to make sure I force exposure to. Dennis Schroeder, 22% ownership. How are you feeling about that? I know you usually like Schroeder.
Yeah, I'm fine with him. And like I said, I'll be around field weight, maybe even slightly above it. So I like him a good amount tonight.
Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better about it. Caruso spotted at shoot around. Appreciate that, Dixon. See, Caruso playing, that always is what keeps me off Kobe White. That's what kept me off him last time. And then he got hurt in game, and then Kobe White went off. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine. I lose a lot. Said Spida is more expensive on FanDuel. Is he still viable? If he's more expensive, honestly, I don't think there's a need to go there on this slate. But what do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I just saw his price. He's over 10K on there, so he wouldn't be as much of a priority for me over there.
Yeah. Zello has some interest in Precious Achua. Have you given him any thought yet, Brandon?
Not really, but on a slate like this where we barely have any value, I would be okay with some shots.
Yeah, in a soft matchup. I don't think that's crazy. Still, never love a lot of these guys, but slightly more viable just because of the matchup. And Dixon, we're on the same page, man. Hopefully it comes through for us. All right, next up we have the Pistons going up against the Hawks. For me, I just like Cade Cunningham here. I still like his relatively cheap price tag and relatively low ownership, so he's someone I'm looking to prioritize here. Not overly excited about some of the other pieces. I know it looks like Bogdanovich is getting some ownership, but what are your thoughts here, Brandon?
Yeah, same exact for me. Cade Cunningham is definitely top priority for me here. I like him a good amount in this matchup, and I think 8,200 is definitely a good price for what he can do. Just hoping they can keep the game somewhat close because we know how bad this Detroit team is. And then I wouldn't be surprised if I got any Bohan. And then Bagley is worth mentioning too with Duran and Stewart out. Not an ideal play, of course, especially a chalky Bagley, but he's going to be viable tonight with what we're working with.
See, Zola, I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say Cade versus Trey because I used to say it all the time last year, and people are like, you hate Trey Young. He's a good whatever. I do like picking on Trey Young. So another reason I like Cade Cunningham. And just to reiterate it, this is one of the top 3 highest total games on the slate. And when that's the case, I'm always much more comfortable getting exposure to these guys I typically don't love, like Bogdanovich, like Bagley. those type of plays, I'm totally fine getting exposure to it. Hopefully it happens naturally and the domination station is giving it to me. I don't want to have to force these guys in, but I agree. I'm totally fine with it. The one guy I would force in, though, is Cade, because I do like him a lot here. Next up, we have the Hawks with quite a few questionable tags. We have Clint Capella, questionable. DeAndre Hunter, questionable. Bogdan Bogdanovic, questionable. What are you trying to do here, man?
So one guy I know for sure I'm playing is Trae Young. Even at 10K, he's in amazing form right now. I think like the last 4 games, he's scored like 60 DraftKings points at least. So I'll be playing him. Capella, if he plays, I don't mind him. 6,700 is a good price in this matchup, and he's been seeing a little more minutes. Of course, I would feel better if Hunter or Bog is out, because I'll kind of free up some more minutes for him. And then as far as these other guys, it's really going to depend on those questionable tags and whether I'm willing to play anybody else.
Yeah, Bogdanovic against Bogdanovic should be an interesting game. I do think they're both viable on this slate, so I don't think that's crazy at all. Dixon said Cade's gonna put Trae in a blender tonight. All right, those are your words. I'm not saying it. I also don't disagree with it. I lose a lot. Said I always play centers against Bagley. He sucks. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad call either. And Bay. Yeah, I think a lot of this will depend around who ends up actually playing for this team for me. But I agree with you, Brandon. Trae Young's definitely a focal point. If Capella ends up getting ruled out, I know Okongwu disappointed us a good bit last time around, but I'm willing to go right back here in a good matchup against the Pistons front court. We've seen multiple guys destroy this team this season. So if Capella's out, Okongwu would be a core play for me once again. Capella is never a core play for me anymore, to be honest, but I would be comfortable being over the field with him if he does play. So definitely a team I like tonight, a team I want to attack. Did you think about DeJounte Murray at all?
Not really. I think there's some better spots around his price range, and I just didn't get there.
Yeah. You know me, I just see a low-owned guy, and I'm just like, maybe it's worth taking a shot here. But you're right. We haven't seen a ton of upside for his price tag, but he's been relatively consistent. So I don't think he's the craziest play by any means. All right, next up, we have a game I'm pretty unexcited about for multiple reasons, but it could become a bit more viable. We have the Timberwolves going up against the Heat. Of course, the one and only Anthony Edwards is listed as questionable. He was questionable on Saturday and did play and saw plenty of minutes. I think he saw around 34 minutes. So take that for what it is. Do you like the Timberwolves at all today, Brandon?
Not really. This is another team where I probably won't have much of or any at all. So nobody's really looking decent at the moment. But of course, if Edwards is ruled out, then I'll give guys like Cat some consideration.
Yeah. One key thing to keep in mind for me today is that Bam Adebayo is back. Tyler Hero is back. I don't really care that much about Tyler Hero, but Bam Adebayo is back, who's a really good defender. And so that's why I'm a little bit less interested in Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns today than I usually would be on a usual slate. So agreed. I agree with everything you mentioned here. I'm not interested in this team, especially if everyone's healthy. For the Miami Heat, like I mentioned, Bam's back, Tyler Hero's back. We don't know if they'll be on any type of minutes limit at this point, but that's worth keeping an eye out for. And then Kyle Lowry is out with some soreness tonight. Are any of these guys standing out for you here?
Nope. Those guys coming back just makes it even easier to kind of fade this whole game, really, as a whole. So kind of moved on from them.
Yeah, and in general, if you're wondering who is hurt the most by Hero and Bam coming back, I would say Jaime. Like, he has really been coming through here lately with Hero out, but I don't think he's going to see the same kind of run with Hero coming back here. But something to keep an eye out for. And also, the Timberwolves, one of the best defenses in the NBA right now, so never a team you want to pick on too much. For the Memphis Grizzlies, we are, one game away until Ja comes back?
Yep, tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah, tomorrow it's happening. But for now, they are still missing a lot of guys. Anyone standing out for you?
So the obvious Vince Williams, chalkiest guy on the slate at the moment, 4,600. He's been playing a ton of minutes and been playing pretty well, actually. So definitely don't mind getting to him tonight. Desmond Bain, I'm kind of liking that ownership on him, 7%. I wish it was a little lower, but 7% isn't bad for him. So I don't mind getting some of him tonight. Aldama, 5,500. He's playing a ton too, so I know I'm probably gonna be. I don't know if it'll be a core play, but I'm sure I'll at least be around fill weight on him. And then I've been on Jaren the last couple games too, and I still loving this low ownership. So I'm definitely okay with him being a leverage play tonight.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's some viable pieces here, and I think you touched on a lot of them. Vince Williams, chalk for good reason. He's been seeing a lot of run. He's been surprisingly better than I thought he would be. Aldama's fine. I don't think he'll be a core play for me if I can avoid it, but like we keep mentioning, we're lacking value, so it might be hard to not have that. Love the low ownership call on Jaren Jackson Jr. I think he's someone that I'll be over the field on. Bane's the tough decision for me, just because he is priced up and there's other guys around him that I like on this slate a bit more. He's one I keep going back and forth on, and I probably won't make a decision on until the pre-lock show. But I think for sure I'll have exposure to Vince, Aldama, and Jaren Jackson Jr. tonight. The other pieces we'll have to just kind of figure out as the rest of the slate develops. Anyone else you want to mention there?
Yes, Xavier Tillman is very interesting at 4,800. The thing that concerns me the most is how many minutes will he see. But he's probably the best pivot you can make off of Bagley, 200 more, I believe. So I'm more willing to play Tillman than I am Bagley, to be honest.
I think that's fair. All right. Next up, we have the OKC side of this game. Surprisingly, I feel like I'm not super excited about these guys, but do you think I'm missing something here?
I kind of want to take some shots on SGA. I like him a good amount, but like we keep saying, the value sucks tonight. So when you got Trey $500 cheaper, he's gonna be more of a priority for me. So not sure how much of him I'll get, but I think he's viable for sure in this matchup. And then Chet's always worth mentioning. We've seen his upside. He almost had a triple-double in blocks, which is insane. Not sure if I'll force him in just because of how big the slate is and how many other centers we have, but those would be kind of my two guys I would play if I were to play anybody here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you too, JJ. I don't foresee myself getting exposure to this game. Maybe if SGA or Chet's ownership goes a little bit lower, I'll be more excited about it, but they're not really standing out for me too much on this slate so far. All right. What about the Nets? You like any of these guys?
Yes, I like Claxton quite a bit, 6,600. His price is great. Great line filler tonight. Love his matchup for him, so I know I'll have a lot of him. Never love a chalky Dinwiddie, but again, his price tag does a lot for lines, and he's been pretty solid as of late. And then the price on Bridges is getting lower. So yeah. I don't know if I want to go over the field there, but I'll be comfortable with 10% exposure to him tonight. And then Cameron Johnson is always worth mentioning too.
Yeah, it's just so weird. It's just like if the slate was a little bit smaller, it'd be so much easier to be like, yep, I know this is exactly what I'm doing. But at this point, again, chalky Spencer Dinwiddie when everyone's healthy, never overly excited about that. If I can avoid it, I'm going to try to tonight. But again, it's just going to depend on what the DS is going to allow me to do with not a ton of value. He's priced very well for mid-range builds, so he lets a lot work there. Nick Claxton, similar story. Good matchup for him against the Jazz here. I'm not trying to go out of my way to avoid it, but I do hope we get some more value so I can pay up at this position a bit more, where I know other people just aren't doing that on this slate. So that's one of my goals for this slate is to pay up at center as much as I possibly can because the value on this slate is at the center position. So we'll see how that pans out. And outside of that, I think you're right. There's some viable options out on this team, but I'm just not overly excited about any of these guys. Bridges being as cheap as he is, I am looking at him as a potential leverage play, but I'm not really seeing a lot of reasons to do that outside of his price tag going lower. Next up, we have the Jazz, who have been so bad this year. Let's see, from an injury report standpoint, I know Markkanen's back. Looking pretty healthy. The main piece here is John Collins being questionable. And then, of course, George and Clarkson have been out for a while now. Are any of these guys standing out for you here?
Not at all. Another team where it's an easy fade for me. Not going anywhere here.
Yeah. I think there's not really anything to talk about here. We can move on. Next up, we have an interesting game. We have two really expensive studs going up against each other. We have the Mavs against the Nuggets. For the Mavs side of the game, of course, Derek Lively's out. Rashawn Holmes is questionable, and then Irving, Green, and Kleba have been out for a while now. Are you playing Doncic tonight?
Yes, I was going to say the same thing I said with Embiid. I don't know how lines are going to look. I don't know how I'm going to make it work. Hopefully, we have some kind of news that makes it better, but I do want at least a 5% man on Luka. He can put up 90 points any night, so I gotta have some of him. And then no one else on this team is really standing out. Derek Jones is showing some just because, again, he's another mid-range guy who makes lines work, but I'm not excited about it. And like I said, no one else on this team is standing out but Luka.
Yeah. It's a tough value slate. We keep talking about it. Doncic is someone I want exposure to, but if we don't get more injury news, JJ, get out of my head, man. Get out of my head. I do prefer Embiid and Jokic tonight over Doncic, but again, and also there's other pay up options too. But I'm just talking like the top tier pay up options. I'm trying to force them in, and then Doncic's kind of like my third guy I want to get exposure to. But if I just can't, I want to make sure I have Embiid and Jokic exposure, just because I keep saying it now at this point on these large slates. I try to get leverage in the way that makes the most sense to me. And if everyone's paying down, I want to pay up. And with explosive guys like an Embiid and Jokic, I just feel like I have a ton of upside and leverage there, and a little bit easier to win that way, in my opinion. But Doncic, obviously a great play if you can afford him.
This might change your mind, but Embiid is now questionable, so that'll kind of change things.
Yeah, so if Embiid doesn't play, then Doncic's number 2.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so disappointing. I was so excited to play Embiid today. Anyway, I saw someone mention taking some small shots on Fontecchio and crew on the Jazz. Yeah, I don't think that's the craziest thing either. Just they don't stand out a ton, but they're fine plays still. Outside of that, I'm not really liking any of these other pieces. Are you looking at any of the other Mavs?
Not really. Like I said, I have some Derek Jones showing at the moment, which hopefully that'll get lower as we get closer to lock.
Yeah. And who mentioned it? JJ said Holmes is the stone man salary-wise. Yeah, if he plays, I have no idea what those minutes are going to look like, though, to be honest, JJ. I personally I'm going to take the wait and see approach here, but taking a shot on a 3K guy who might see 15 to 20 minutes isn't the craziest thing, but it's definitely getting a little cute. If Embiid is out, that does make Vucevic a much, much better play too. And then for the Nuggets, I already talked about how I'm going to be over the field on Jokic tonight. A, I already love playing bigs against the Mavs. And then B, we already talked about the pay up strat at center today. So that's who I'm prioritizing. Are you looking at any of the other pieces for the Nuggets, Brandon?
Yes, 2 more guys for me. Jamal Murray, I love him tonight. I like his price tag. I think he should get back up to hopefully past 30 minutes. And he makes lines work as well. Gordon is another one. I prefer him out of MPJ just because of that discount. So I'll have a decent amount of him. And if MPJ shows up a little bit, I'd be fine with that. But like I said, Gordon is kind of the priority for me over him.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'll look a little bit closer at MPJ just because, again, when there's a low-owned guy in between two chalky guys, Brent automatically says might want to consider playing him, but we'll see. I'll keep a close eye on that. And I do like Jamal Murray today. Gordon, if he doesn't get too much chalkier, I'm okay with it. But if he gets much chalkier, a little bit less excited about it. All right, 2 more games. We have the Wizards going up against the Kings. Highest game total on the slate, but also the widest spread on the slate. So something to keep in consideration. Are you liking any of the Wizards at this point?
Not really, to be honest.
Gafford
is kind of the main one who I would be willing to play, but definitely not going to – I don't think I'm going to force anybody in on this side.
You know me, Poole and good matchups. It worked for us last time. Going right back to him again at low ownership. I mean, I get why he's low owned. He's been hot garbage, but he's been good in good game environments, and this is a good game environment. So right back. I think 5% is appropriate for 150 max. I might honestly be around 10, 15% just because I really do like this spot for him. And then I think Kyle Kuzma is also very viable at very low ownership. I'll have a 5% min on him as long as this game continues to be the highest game total on the slate. So, yeah, it's going to be like that. And then Gafford's fine, but he's not a guy I'm going to force in. But I do hope to be around field weight exposure on him.
Tyus is worth mentioning, too, because his last 2 games, he has completely smashed and broke the slate. So I will mention him.
Yeah. Tyus has been your guy for a while, man. I should just be like, all right, Brandon, Tyus today. All right. And then next up for the Kings, we talked about it at the start of the show. De'Aaron Fox is questionable. That does matter, as we saw on Saturday. Are any of these guys standing out for you?
Really, only Sabonis and Fox. Of course, if Fox plays, I want to have some ownership. If he's out, then I might give some of these other guys consideration, but even if he's out there, price tags like Malik Monk 6,800 is not that exciting to me, but it is a good matchup, so I'd at least think about it. But as of now, I'm playing as if he plays, and it's just those 2 guys for me to where I want maybe like a 5% min on Sabonis, and then I'll be willing to go 10% on Fox.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. If he plays, we know we can play whoever we want against the Wizards. So, again, this is the highest game total on the slate. If Fox plays, I also want to play Fox. If Fox doesn't play, I'll have exposure to Murray, Monk, and Sabonis. But even if Fox does play, Sabonis is a potential leverage play for me on this slate. It really does just depend on if Embiid plays or not. If Embiid plays, I doubt I'll have as much Sabonis, but I do still like him a lot. But if Embiid doesn't play, then it'll be easy for me to get leverage on Sabonis here. All right, last game on the slate. Maybe the most annoying, but at least not on the Knicks side of things. We have the Knicks against the Lakers. The Knicks made life pretty easy for us. Everyone's healthy outside of Mitchell Robinson, who's been out for a good chunk of time now. Are any of these guys standing out for you here?
I think Randall is okay. I would like him more if AD is out, of course, but he's been playing really well, so don't mind getting there. And I love a low-owned Brunson. I'm playing him, especially if he stays at 3%. I'm okay with going 10% there. Last game, he was super low-owned, and or it might have been like 2 games ago, super low-owned and broke the slate. So completely fine playing him. And then Quickly is super gross chalk to me, but I get it on a slate where we barely have any value. So I'll be going back and forth if I want to eat that chalk or not, because he has really not been that great this season. So
yeah, just praying for value. That's it.
Yeah.
Like up until the pre-lock, I'm just gonna be like, come on, give us something to work with here. And ideally we'll get it. But if not, then I agree. Quickly's fine. He's not someone you should feel good about. His minutes are always all over the place. But if we don't have the value, we don't have the value. So I like to mix that up, and I'm okay with him being in the mix. Randall, hard for me to prioritize him, but I do plan on being around field weight. I want to see him show up. Brunson, not overly excited about him. I like other PG's point guards on this slate over him. But again, if he shows up naturally, I'm not going to X him out. Now, the painful part of the show. The Los Angeles Lakers. I'll go through the list. LeBron James, questionable. Anthony Davis, questionable. And Christian Wood, questionable. Obviously, the things that matter here are LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Really hard to know what we want to do here with them both questionable. We saw both of them miss a game last week. So it's really a tough call here, not knowing this information. But do you have any leans that you're trying to do here, Brandon?
I wish I did. It's honestly 50-50 to me. I can see at least one of them sitting out again. It's just hard to tell who. So for that reason, it might just have to be a wait and see approach. And it's, of course, not ideal that it's the last game, but hopefully we'll get lucky and we can get that news somewhat early to where we can react to it and get some of these other guys.
Last game on the slate and no other games at the same time. There are no pivot options. So usually I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going to put a 5% man on AD. We'll have some decent pivot options here. Yeah, no. There aren't really great options here. And I don't think they'll both miss this game, but in a weird chance that they do both miss this game, you don't want to have AD in the util spot and then you're paying down and if AD and LeBron are both out, then you're going all the way down to, you would have to play Randall, I guess, at that point, which wouldn't be the worst play, but I would much rather play like someone else in that pay range instead of going down to the 8-9K range. So tough spot. We'll just have to wait and see. JJ, yeah, they pissed me off with it too. It's really annoying because I feel like they have to already know who's going to play, right?
I would think so, but they like to mess with us. I feel like they do it on purpose.
Yeah. It's like, what did we do to them? Anyway, that's the slate in a nutshell. Again, a lot of it, per usual, will depend on the questionable tag. So keep a close eye on the news. If you're a DFS Army member, keep a close eye on the Discord. Uppers will make sure we're good to go with that news. Anything else you want to touch on, Brandon, before we go away?
I don't think so.
Yep. All right. Well, that's everything, guys. Appreciate the support. Don't forget to like, subscribe. If you're interested in joining DFS Army, the link is in the description for that. Promo code BDUB for that 10% discount there. And outside of that, look forward to seeing you all on the pre-lock show later today and tomorrow. Have a good one, guys.